Alright, so I finally managed to get a pretty good world boss team, and believe it or not, I have never made a world boss video on my channel, so this is the first one. I didn't want to make it because the runs I got were usually just full RNG. I didn't have a good team or anything like that. Now I'm confident in saying I have a team that actually works like pretty much all of the time. The good thing about this team compared to the usual perna based teams is that it does not have that much RNG. With perna, when you're using perna, you have to fight the chaotic ray RNG, all of that BS. With this team, you get so much score that you will usually have an SS rank before the boss even uses his ultimate thing, like the transformation thing. So there's a lot of RNG that you avoid, right? Because you get the majority of the score there, and you only have to deal with a few seconds of his ultimate phase before you reach the SSS phase. And basically, in the end, I will showcase you the... No, you know what? I'll showcase the run right now, and I'll later talk about the strategies behind some of these picks. Do not worry, there's some LD units in there, but you definitely can replace most of them, and I'll talk about the replacements as well as what you can substitute them for, as well as the units that are pretty much must picks in this dungeon. Okay, so I'll queue up the run and I'll explain after it finishes. Okay, so now Now that the run is over, I will explain some of the replacements you can get for some of these units. So you will see that I do have 3 light and dark nav 5s that aren't freely available. That is the light beast rider, the dark chicken, and the light what's it called, beetle knight, right? So for the dark chicken, I will say that I was just simply testing a new unit and I happened to get a run with a good score. Trust me, I had plenty of runs before this with the same dark chicken and they weren't as good, so definitely don't take him as a requirement. He's just a decent stripper plus a defense break and a damage taken up. You can get the damage taken up as well as the strip from Perna, so really Perna does pretty much the same thing apart from the defense break that he provides, but then again you will get a lot of defense break from your main damage dealer, so dark chicken really can be replaced by pretty much anyone, right? Now for the light beast rider, I was using her to take care of the little crystals. As you know, 3 of the beast riders, I believe it is the wind one, water one, and the light one, will take care of those little floating cube blocks whenever they spawn, because they will target the enemy with the lowest max HP. And since there are only 2 enemies in this whole fight, which is the main boss as well as the cubes, and the main boss has much higher max HP than the cubes, she will automatically switch to targeting the cubes whenever available, right? So I use her, but you can also use the wind one, the water one, or if you are able to deal with the cubes yourself, you don't even need a beast rider there at all. And for the light beetle, I would say he is one of the better units when it comes to this team. However, there is a similar unit to the light beetle, which is the wind epicure priest, and the light beetle is there mostly for increasing the level of beneficial effects. However, the same can be achieved using the wind epicure priest. It will only increase by 1 level instead of 2. However, if you just add some cycling, something like a Tion or a Chronomia into that team, you will be able to cycle that first skill more and in turn increase those buffs a little bit more. So if you don't have the light beetle, you can use the wind epicure priest in it, and I do highly recommend having a unit that increases the buffs, because the way the main damage source is working, right, it does damage based on buffs, and those buffs stay for the whole fight. So whenever you increase them, they will stay increased for the whole fight. So you definitely want to have a unit that increases the level of beneficial effects. And now let me talk a bit about the units that you must have, right? So I would say there are 4 of them in total, right? So the 3 units in my team, as well as 1 of them in the top team. So for the first unit, probably the most simple one, Verdehiel, the fire vampire. I probably don't have to explain why you need him, but unlike Perna, you will need to spam your skills way more often, which means that if you were able to get away without it in your runs where you run Perna as the main damage dealer, that will not work here, because you will need to spam like 20 to 30 mana worth of skills every like 10 seconds. So just with mana regen alone, without having the mana cost down, you will simply not be able to get anywhere close to a good score like this. So Verdehiel and the Verdehiel ultimate, most importantly, will be a must. Now the second unit you will need will be something that increases your ultimate gauge a lot. There are a few options. You can use something like a Tiana, you can use something like a Water Fairy, something like an Eleanor if you have her. I chose Tiana because here's the deal. With this team, because you are not running Perna in your main team, you do not have a reliable strip for that immunity. What you need to remove is essentially you want to remove immunity as soon as the boss respawns, as well as you want to have the ability to remove the other 2 buffs whenever they get stacked a little bit high, right? So by the time the buffs reach like level 5, level 6, you ideally want to be removing them, and if you don't remove them, your damage will drop a lot because you are not using Perna as your main damage dealer. This means that you can no longer ignore any beneficial effects built into this passive, right? You do damage as a regular damage dealer, so you need to remove the buffs, especially the anti-crit buff from the boss. So yeah, while you will be sacrificing the ability to heal from something like a water fadey, I found that Tiana is just much better for me and will most likely be much better for you because you just have that reliable strip whenever you need to. Now the third unit you will need, it's not an if, it's a yes. What? That made no sense. Whatever. I take that back. Let's just look at the facts, right? What you will need is the blue chicken. We no longer use Perna as the main dealer, we use sigmarus for it, and the reason for that is while he does not have stuff like inbuilt defense penetration or the ability to strip and just repeat the hits, he has insane damage scaling. So if you look at it, 633%, it's not a lot at first, however he also gets additional damage based on speed, and as long as you have a unit like a Crowa or any other unit that increases movement speed, not movement speed, attack speed, that damage will go up a lot. So that's the reason why not only you will need buffs like attack buff, crit damage buff, the general damage buff, all of that, you will also want to have level 10 movement speed buff, not movement, why do I say movement speed? Attack speed buff is possible, right? Because the more attack speed you have, the more damage you will deal. However, keep in mind there is a cap, so if you are using an attack speed buff, especially if you plan on maxing it to level 10, you don't need more than 150 attack speed on your unit, because the attack speed will get buffed by 110% at maximum level. Now, the good part about this is whenever you spam this skill, you will increase all your buffs by 10 seconds, which means that once you have the Verde Heal ult, you spam the skill a few times and the buffs will stay for the rest of the game. And yeah, the best part about this skill as well is that if the target is immune to CC effects, you will be dealing a defense break. So you don't need a defense break like you would when using a Perna, because this unit not only does it do massive damage, but it will also do the defense break by himself. So that's probably the main reason why you want to take care of the immunity early on. As long as you strip the immunity, you will be able to do damage with this skill alone. And the last unit that, okay, I will say you don't need, however, in like 98% of all teams, she will benefit you so much that it is just literally worth investing devil mons into her. And that is the Fire Ninetail Fox She-Ra. So she has quite a few skills, however, we really don't care about those. If you plan on skilling her up, honestly, when it comes to World Boss, you don't need the first skill, you don't need the second skill, and you don't even need the passive maxed out. All you need to max out is the first basic attack, right? Like, if you manage to get basic attack maxed out, you don't need to evolve any of the other 4 skills. She's just there for the basic attack. And if you see at the passive of the basic attack, if no critical hit lands, she will apply a critical resistance down debuff for 16 seconds. The reason this works so well is because the boss himself will apply the critical resistance up every like second, right? And it will increase to level 1, level 2, level 3, all the way up to like level 10. What this does is it essentially cancels out the buff. So once the boss receives level 10 buff, or level 1 buff I mean, as long as you apply level 1 critical resistance down, it's essentially like the buff isn't even there. The best part about this is as the boss keeps stacking them, the critical resistance will increase, and because it requires no critical hit in order to apply this, the higher the buff, the easier it will be to apply this. Because let's say the problem with She-Ra is her base critical rate is very high. I think it's like close to 35%, right? So at first, for example, for my build, my She-Ra has 50% critical rate, so she will only apply this effect every second basic attack, right? However, when the boss receives critical resistance of 30%, right, that chance will be around 80%, which means that she will be able to land this debuff much easier. So as the boss buff level increases, your debuff level will be easier to land, and she will follow up right after, up until you strip the whole anti-crit buff completely, and your your sigmarus has an even easier chance to deal with that. And if you're curious to see what the build should be, you will want to build her like a magical archer essentially. you want her to have no critical rate, or at least as low as possible. Again, it's not possible to have 0, because if you look at it, her base critical rate, yeah, it looks like, nah, I think I had somewhere from the bonus, I think I might have gems with critical rate, but yeah, her base critical rate is around, what is that, 21%, which is still pretty high, right? So ideally, you want to be removing all critical rate you can, just so her passive lands, not her passive, but her basic attack lands a bit more. You want max accuracy in that, and you want as much attack speed as possible. So ideally, you build her like a weak point unit, even though she doesn't have any weak point attacks, but that's just the condition she needs to meet for her basic attack to land. And throughout the run, if you want to backtrack, you will see that whenever the boss gets the anti-crit, she will follow up with a anti-crit debuff right after, right? So yeah, that's pretty much how I did World Boss. I will say there is way less RNG involved. I've managed to get pretty consistent SSS runs throughout. I don't think I did a lot. Yeah, if you ignore the heat random testing, as you can see, the scores are pretty good. Like, and there is almost no RNG involved when it comes to reaching SSS. Yes, you will be getting hit by the chaotic race later on if you're going for like 30 million, 40 million, all of that. However, reaching the 23 million mark will be much easier with this team. So yeah, that's about it, and peace.